All right, welcome devotees to the morning Srimad Bhagavatam session. Today we are reading Canto 3, chapter 25, the verse number 38. This is the chapter, The Glories of Devotional Service. I'll read the verse, translation and purport, and then we can discuss something. The verse is, Nakarhichin matpara shantarupe nangshanti no me nimishole diheti. येषाम् अहं प्रिय आत्मसुतश्च सखा गुरुः सुहृदो दैवमिष्टम् न कर्हि चिन्मत्पराशान्तरूपे नङ्क्षन्ति नो मे निमिषो लेडिहेतिः येषाम् अहं प्रिय आत्मा सुतश्च सखा गुरुः सुहृदो दैवमिष्टम्. Word to word, na, not, karhichit, ever, matparaha, my devotees, shanta rupe, O mother, nangshanti, will lose, no, not, may, my, animishaha, time, ladihi, destroys, etihi, weapon, yesam, of whom, aham, I, priyaha, dear, atma, self, sutaha, son, cha, and sakha, friend, guruhu, preceptor, suhrudaha, benefactor, daivam, deity, istam, chosen. Translation. The Lord continued, my dear mother, devotees who receive such transcendental opulences are never bereft of them. Neither weapons nor the change of time can destroy such opulences. Because the devotees accept me as their friend, their relative, their son, preceptor, benefactor, and supreme deity, they cannot be deprived of their possessions at any time. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. It is stated in Bhagavad Gita that one may elevate himself to the higher planetary systems, even up to Brahmaloka, by dint of pious activities. But when the effects of such pious activities are finished, one again comes back to this earth to begin a new life of activities. Thus, even though one is promoted to the higher planetary system for enjoyment and a long duration of life, still that is not a permanent settlement. But as far as the devotees are concerned, their assets, the achievement of devotional service, and the consequent opulence of Vaikuntha, even on this planet, are never destroyed. In this verse, Kapiladeva addresses his mother as Shantarupa, indicating that the opulences of devotees are fixed because devotees are eternally fixed in the Vaikuntha atmosphere, which is called Shantarupa because it is in the mode of pure goodness, undisturbed by the modes of passion and ignorance. Once one is fixed in the devotional service of the Lord, his position of transcendental service cannot be destroyed, and the pleasure and service simply increase unlimitedly. For the devotees engaged in Krishna consciousness, in the Vaikuntha atmosphere, there is no influence of time. In the material world, the influence of time destroys everything, but in the Vaikuntha atmosphere, there is no influence of time or of the demigods, because there are no demigods in the Vaikuntha planets. Here, our activities are controlled by different demigods. Even if we move our hand and leg, the action is controlled by the demigods. But in the Vaikuntha atmosphere, there is no influence of the demigods or of time. Therefore, there is no question of destruction. When the time element is present, there is the certainty of destruction. But when there is no time element, past, present, or future, then everything is eternal. Therefore, this verse uses the words na nakshyanti, indicating that the transcendental opulences will never be destroyed. The reason for freedom from destruction is also described. The devotees accept the Supreme Lord as the most dear personality and reciprocate with him in different relationships. They accept the Supreme Personality of Godhead as the dearmost friend, the dearmost relative, the dearmost son, the dearmost preceptor, the dearmost well-wisher, or the dearmost deity. The Lord is eternal. Therefore, any relationship in which we accept him is also eternal. It is clearly confirmed herein that the relationships cannot be destroyed, and therefore the opulences of those relationships are never destroyed. Every living entity has a propensity to love someone. We can see that if someone has no object of love, he generally directs his love to a pet animal like a cat or a dog. Thus, the eternal propensity for love in all living entities is always searching for a place to reside. From this verse, we can learn that we can love the Supreme Personality of Godhead as our dearmost object, as a friend, as a son, as a preceptor, or as a well wisher. And there will be no cheating and no end to such love. We shall eternally enjoy the relationship with the Supreme Lord in different aspects. A special feature of this verse is the acceptance of the Supreme Lord as a supreme preceptor. Bhagavad Gita was spoken directly by the Supreme Lord, and Arjuna accepted Krishna as Guru or spiritual master. Similarly, we should accept only Krishna as the supreme spiritual master. Krishna, of course, means Krishna and his confidential devotees. Krishna is not alone. When we speak of Krishna, Krishna means Krishna in his name, in his form, in his qualities, in his abode, in his associates. Krishna is never alone, for the devotees of Krishna are not impersonalists. For example, a king is always associated with his secretary, his commander, his servant, and so much paraphernalia. As soon as we accept Krishna and his associates as our preceptors, no ill effects can destroy our knowledge. In the material world, the knowledge which we acquire may change because of the influence of time, but nevertheless, the conclusions received from Bhagavad Gita, directly from the speeches of the Supreme Lord Krishna, can never change. There is no use interpreting Bhagavad Gita, it is eternal. Krishna, the Supreme Lord, should be accepted as one's best friend. He will never cheat. He will always give his friendly advice and friendly protection to the devotee. If Krishna is accepted as a son, he will never die. Here we have a very loving son or child, but the father and mother, or those who are affectionate towards him, always hope, may my son not die. But Krishna actually never will die. Therefore, those who accept Krishna or the Supreme Lord as their son will never be bereft of their son. In many instances, devotees have accepted the deity as a son. In Bengal, there are many such instances, and even after the death of the devotee, the deity performs a Shraddha ceremony for the father. The relationship is never destroyed. People are accustomed to worship different forms of demigods, but in Bhagavad Gita, such a mentality is condemned. Therefore, one should be intelligent enough to worship only the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his different forms, such as Lakshmi Narayana, Sita Ram, and Radha Krishna. Thus, one will never be cheated. By worshipping the demigods, one may elevate himself to the higher planets, but during the dissolution of the material world, the deity and the abode of the deity will be destroyed. But one who worships the Supreme Personality of Godhead is promoted to the Vaikuntha planets, where there is no influence of time, destruction, or annihilation. The conclusion is that the time influence cannot act upon devotees who have accepted the Supreme Personality of Godhead as everything. This is such a long paragraph. Never used to read so big paragraphs. Anyways, I will start with the prayers and I'll talk something about what I understood, and we can see if there is any questions. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kada Mahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamsha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamsha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarupyascha Kripa Sindhupya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharini Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Pashatya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Thank you for joining this morning. So the verse, before the verse, just a brief introduction to this chapter, the glories of devotional service. In this chapter, Kapila Muni answers to his mother, Devahuti, when she inquires about how she can practice or this ultimate process or ultimate yoga uh, that she can practice in the absence of her husband after he leaves. Kardamuvani leaves, and as per the instructions of Brahma, she approaches Kapila Muni and asks several questions. And Kapila Muni describes very beautifully how uh, the Bhakti Yoga is the ultimate, and he he describes the Sankhya philosophy primarily in some of the purpose that Prabhupada mentioned. This is more of a Bhagavad Gita second chapter. Like he talks about how we can transcend the three material modes, the body, the soul, how we need to use our all these senses, and how do we control our mind. And some of the verses, and one of the verse in this chapter, which I really liked, is how uh, he instructs her mother to seek sadhus. That was he speaks about how one's attachment should still be there, but the attachment should just be directed towards a sadhu. Uh, and he describes the state of the mind or the mental state of the devotees, how they are completely absorbed in serving Krishna or the Lord. And in the last couple of verses and this verse, he mentions how devotees doesn't aspire for anything, but still he receives the opulences. And in the translation of this verse, I'll read it again. The Lord continued, "My dear mother, devotees who receive such transcendental opulences are never bereft of them. Neither weapons nor the change of time can destroy such opulences. Because the devotees accept me as their friend, their relative, their son, preceptor, benefactor, and supreme deity, they cannot be deprived of their possessions at any time." So the transcendental opulences here has been described, I mean the previous verse, the it's a material opulences, one who can receive a higher birth in a higher planetary systems, even Satyaloka, or some mystic yogic powers that one may receive to different yoga practices. So these are the transcendental opulences he speaks about. And there are several such pastimes that we hear in Srimad Bhagavatam. Uh, we know the personalities like Dhruva Maharaj, Ambarish Maharaj, Bali Maharaj, or even his devotees like Sudama, the fruit seller. These all personalities have experienced this already, uh, having these transcendental opulences while they are living in this life, in this world. But ever they got attached to them, neither they seek from the Lord those opulences. So, for example, Bali Maharaj, he surrendered everything, uh, despite his not his spiritual master, even saying not to fall for the Lord's uh, whatever the trick that he's playing on him, but still he surrendered everything, and in return, even though he's not looking for something of material opulences, but still Lord given him uh, a position which is very highly opulent in, I think, some Svargaloka or in the lower planets, but and he himself became the doorkeeper of that particular planet. So Lord gives in a way that one cannot expect, and it will be unlimited. So those kind of opulences will be received by the pure devotees only. So what happens if he approached the Lord with uh, asking for opulences? So that sometimes it will be different. Krishna might actually take away from us those the what we already have. In spite of giving more, he could actually take it away, just like how he did it in the case of Narada Muni. He took away his only mother, and in return he given him bhakti yoga, which is even more higher. But how do we understand this? So it depends on how, whether one of the things that we can think of is, do we have the capacity to receive that such an opulence? In the case of pure devotees, they are completely detached, so they are able to easily accept such opulence and use it in the service of the Supreme Lord. But devotees who are not in that stage, where they are completely detached, when they receive such opulence, they might that becomes a distraction. Uh, we can easily get distracted on top of already having so many distractions. So we don't want to add up another distraction. So Krishna knows when to uh, give such opulences. So when we don't have that capacity to handle it, then maybe we should not expect it. So it, it's if how do we think then? So when we receive some opulences, so how do we use it? It should be used in the service of the Lord. Like we should consider it as God's gifts, and then use everything in the service of the Lord. And in that way, we are not allured or attached to that opulences or uh, whatever we receive. In terms that will become considered as Maya in that case when we attach to those things. But instead, if we use these positions in terms in the service of the Lord, is practicing Yukta Vairagya, then we can receive them as God's gifts. And in this verse, it's mentioned that nothing can destroy such opulences, neither weapons nor the time. And Prabhupada talks about Vaikuntha atmosphere. So what is that? So Vaikuntha atmosphere here, Prabhupada mentions is basically the mood of a pure devotee. So how we can bring that in the material world? It's again how a pure devotee is always in the mode of pure goodness, without any tinge of passion and ignorance. He always serves the Lord, whether he have the opulence or not. He's always serving the Lord, and that way we can bring this mode of Vaikuntha atmosphere even while we present in this material world. And the how Kapila Muni also explains how to transcend the three material modes even in this chapter in the previous verses. So by transcending the material modes of goodness, passion, and ignorance, so one can easily come to the mode of pure goodness mode. So how it is not easy, however. Like I was reading this book by Burijana Prabhu, the Japa. In that he mentions the function of the mind or the nature of the mind, how it works. He primarily says that so before we enter into this material world, we are all spiritual, we are all pure, and then we take up this body. The first thing that we get is the false ego. The consciousness is conditioned by taking the senses and the body, and there are subtle senses, subtle body, which is false ego, intelligence, and then mind. And the function of mind is the primarily two things. One is sankalpa and vikalpa. Either you accept or reject, and whatever is favorable for to basically the mind serves the false ego in various ways. And if it is favorable, some action which is favorable for our false ego, that I am the Lord, or I want to enjoy this enjoying propensity, then we accept it. If it is unfavorable for me to enjoy uh, in this world, in this body, then it rejects it. So this is primarily doing sankalpa or vikalpa. It's basically accepting or rejecting it. Uh, in the same way how we take up happiness and distress, this is the same way, the duality of material world. So how we can uh, understand that, like in Ashtanga Yogis, he mentions in that chapter how they control the mind once they understand how they can control the fluctuations of this mind between sankalpa and vikalpa. It is how once we understand when we are serving our false ego, and when you get detached from that attached when we get detached from these two fluctuations, accepting and rejecting things, uh, then one can control the mind. And then in this verse also speak about relationships as a friend, relative, son, preceptor, benefactor, the supreme deity. So when the devotees accept Krishna is one of these relationships, they cannot be deprived of their positions at any time. So the relationships is the essence. One of the uh, times when I heard from His Holiness Rompal Swami Maharaj, he speaks about relationships or the rasas. The rasas, which is the loving mellows of the relationships, is the essence. Sometimes we hear the knowledge that will remove the ignorance. The knowledge is important, and he says that knowledge is actually let's say, for example, if one is trying to climb a wall, there are these footholds. So knowledge is considered as a foothold that can help us take another step on the wall. But that is not the essence. The essence is understanding the rasa, the sambandha, the relationship between us and the Lord. And once one understands that essence, that then one understand that, okay, out of all these relationships, what is it? It's a Krishna's who is a Krishna's enjoyment. Any relationship that we see, it's basically it's for the enjoyment of Krishna. And how do we understand the relationships? Also, if you see Vyasadeva, he gave all the Srimad Bhagavatam. He had all the information of Bhagavatam, but still in the assembly of when his son Shukadeva Goswami is giving the uh, giving this knowledge to Parikshit Maharaj. His father Vyasdeva is also present, even though he knows everything. It's again how to understand that he's trying to experience the relationship or the rasa of Shukadeva Goswami when he is giving this Bhagavatam to Parikshit Maharaj. So it's important to understand the relationship and and uh, behave in a way that we get the relationship with the Lord. And then Prabhupada says, and not in this verse, but in a lecture of speaking about this verse, that he speak about the example of Vasudeva and Devaki in their previous lives as I think it's Sutapa and Prishni when they get married and before they would like to have a son, they take this immense austerities for the Lord and they would like to uh, serve the Lord and uh, then have the Lord as their son. So they take up these great austerities and then ask when Lord appears, they ask the Lord to become as one of their son. So it's how do we understand this? Like they even before they want to enjoy their life as the grihasthas, they are still seeking relationship. They're with the Lord, and Krishna becomes their son. Not just in that life, he becomes his son in the next three lives. And then when Vasudeva and Devaki, in their lifetime, Krishna was born, and that is their last lifetime, and it brings them back to his abode. So understanding the relationships, it's very important. In fact, that is the essence, as Maharaj says, when we practice Krishna consciousness. And even in this verse, Prabhupada speaks about in the last verse how uh, the sun and how one aspires or think Krishna to become as their son. And he speaks in that in one of the lectures that having Krishna as a son rather than a father, uh, it it helps in a way because when Krishna becomes a son, then you're trying to give. You usually don't ask something from a son; you actually give to the son. Versus a father, you actually expect something from a father. So the relationship of having a son, having Krishna as a son, is more easier in than having him as another relationship where you ask for him. Just like how Mother Yashoda always tried to give him uh, and then not to expect anything back. So I found that to be interesting. Uh, and I was thinking, pure devotees doesn't ask anything. However, they still receive and again use it for the service of the Lord. So that is my takeaway from this. Even though we might receive something, uh, we should find some or the other way to give it back. That is the main essence. Someone might be opulent, but it's hard to give it back to the Lord. One need to practice that. That way we can progress in our spiritual life. Now we are very close to 8. I will stop here and let's see if anyone has any question or discussion to share something.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you
Hare
so
Krishna.
much. So I was just thinking, Prabhupada also commented, there is no expectation in the relationship. So then that will be eternal, right? There is no loss of that. Between a devotee, a pure devotee, and the Lord. So there is no expectation back from the Lord. So, but then that relationship is always existing because it's not going to fail, right? But then where there is expectation, it is going to fail if not today, tomorrow. So
Mm.
I was just
Yes.
thinking about that. How the devotee, who is in that relationship with the Lord, so it's eternal. So
Yes, Prabhu. Yes. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Okay. Oh, thank you for joining today. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripasindhubhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah.
thank
Shri
you.